Members, it's just past the scheduled time for our meeting. We've now formed a quorum. Mr. Vincent Fang, Chairman of the Panel on Commerce and Industry, is out of town today. So, I, Lai-wan, will take the chair today. Item 1 on the agenda, confirmation of the minutes of the last meeting. The minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of April has already been distributed to members. Up to this moment, the Secretariat has not received any proposal for amendment. Can I have the minutes confirmed? If there's no question, we move on to item 2 on the agenda. Information papers issued since the last meeting. We received 2 information papers. The first one is the administration's response to Ms. Emily Lau's letter dated the 16th of May, as set out in paper 1267/01. This paper is mainly about Ms. Emily Lau's concern that in the formulation of policies, the administration may have to consider the concerns of the mainland. So that's something to do with homeland relationship. We've already received a response. The Establishment Subcommittee and the Finance Committee have already discussed the issue. Another paper is the administration's paper on United Nations Sanctions, Iran Amendment Regulation 2013. It's paper 1309/01. All right. Then we proceed to item 3 on the agenda, date of the next meeting and items for discussion. As for next regular meeting, it was originally scheduled for the 16th of July, also a Tuesday, also at 2:30 p.m. However, the administration has not submitted any paper to this panel for discussion. Mr. Vincent Fang, the chairman, suggests that the panel can consider cancelling the next regular meeting. So I would like to have your views. If there are no comments, I'll pass your no comments to the chairman, Mr. Vincent Fang. Madam Chairman, I'd like to know why there's nothing from the administration. I recall that at the beginning of the session, when we prepared for our meetings, we had arranged a whole series of issues to be discussed. And suddenly we're like at the Exco, there's nothing to discuss. In theory, there should be something to discuss. For the next agenda item, the permanent secretary will come in. Please invite him to come in first. All right, should we invite him to come in? And we'll have a discussion together with him. Are the 2 of them coming in at the same time? Yes, we'd like to welcome the officials from the Constitutional and Mainland Affairs Bureau as well. Please notify them. I don't know whether they've arrived. First of all, I'd like to welcome the Permanent Secretary for Commerce and Constitutional and Mainland Affairs and his deputy. Originally, you should enter only for the next item. Nevertheless, members would like you to join us earlier so that we can have a better understanding of why there's no item for discussion for our next regular meeting on the 16th of July. Members somehow feel that there are a lot of outstanding items for discussion. Who will answer this? Mr. Andrew Wong, Permanent Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development. Madam Chairman, before the meeting, we did have some communication with the Secretariat. At the beginning of the session, we discussed with the Chairman the work for the whole year. We discussed what issues should be discussed. I understand that your Secretariat has prepared a list of outstanding items for discussion, as well as a list of follow-up actions. For example, every year, if there's any progress on CEPA, we'll come back to you. As for standing issues for reporting to this panel, every year we'll only report to this panel when there's new progress. For July, we don't see such progress. So when we discussed with your Secretariat, we said that for July, there's nothing special that we would like to bring up with the panel again. Madam Chairman, perhaps I should go back and reconsider this and allow me to further liaise with your Secretariat. Members can also suggest items for discussion for our July meeting. Mr. Chung Kwok Pan. Thank you, Chairman. In a moment, we'll discuss the paper on trade relations between the mainland and Hong Kong, and an hour has been allocated to that item. The scope of that discussion item is very broad. I don't think 1 hour will be enough. If you say that next month we don't have any special agenda items, then we can revisit this paper. I believe we can spend 2 hours on it. I agree, Chairman. Then the Permanent Secretary won't have any headache about this. He can bring his team with him. Mr. Martin Liao? Madam Chairman, I don't quite understand what the Secretariat or what the Permanent Secretary was saying. I recall that when we discussed the National 12th Five-Year Plan, the administration said that during the last year of that 5-year plan, the service industries will be fully open to Hong Kong. I wonder whether there's any information for discussion. Madam Chairman, in the paper today, we explain the latest progress of CEPA. As for the concern of Mr. Liao, we are still discussing it with the relevant bureaus and ministries on the mainland. We only report back when there's progress. Sometimes it's not for us to control the time frame. I can undertake that for these members' concerns, once we reach a new stage, we'll definitely come back and report to this panel. For many years, this has been our practice. Any other members who would like to ask the Permanent Secretary questions? Mr. Dennis Kwok. Sorry, Madam Chairman, I was late because I was at another meeting next door. What about Shanghai? Oh, we haven't come to that yet. We're still on item 3. Because there's no paper from the administration for next month. There are 2 suggestions now. First of all, concerning trade relations between the mainland and Hong Kong. If we can't finish the paper today, we can continue in July. It doesn't matter. We can discuss trade relations between the mainland and Hong Kong today. If we cannot finish today, then I can talk to Mr. Vincent Fang, our chairman. Then Mr. Martin Liao would like to discuss the National 12th Five-Year Plan. I think it's about time for a discussion. The 13th plan is coming. The Honourable Member referred to what the CPG said previously. That is, during the last year of the 12th Five-Year Plan, we would like to have the service industries basically fully rationalized, that is, open to Hong Kong. We're still discussing with the relevant bureaus and ministries on the mainland. I think we must wait for indicative developments first. We're still discussing with the Ministry of Commerce. There's no progress at the moment. We've put forward some suggestions, but there's no final reply from the Ministry of Commerce yet. We'll report to Mr. Vincent Fang, the chairman. Then we can move on. Oh, yes. I'm on another issue. I just want to signify my wish to speak. Oh, Mr. Wong Ting Kwong raises his hand on your behalf. It doesn't matter. I'll be watching. So let's proceed to item 4 on the agenda. We'll first of all invite Mr. Andrew Wong, Permanent Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development, to introduce the paper to us. Thank you, Madam Chairman. To promote the economic and trade relations between the mainland and Hong Kong is a major task of the SARG. Every year we'll find a time to report to the relevant panel of the LegCo on our progress in that regard. Today, together with the colleagues of the Constitution and Mainland Affairs Bureau, we've prepared this paper, which was distributed before the meeting. In the paper, certain major issues were reported, including the latest developments. For example, the latest progress of CEPA, the development of the domestic sales on the mainland, promotion of investment, customs clearance of goods, innovation and technology, and e-business, as well as creative industries and intellectual property rights. We also forge collaboration on tourism. We'll also speak on enhancing the functions of the offices of the SARG on the mainland, including the collaborative developments in the PRD region, in Nansha and Shanghai. And of course, my colleagues and colleagues of the CMAB will be very happy to answer any questions members may have. I'll see whether Ms. Chan King-yu, Permanent Secretary for Constitution and Mainland Affairs, have anything to report to us. I'd just like to say a few words. On this topic, the major task of our Bureau will not just be confined to the policy address of the CE, that is G2G communication, and the 5th ETO to be opened in Wuhan, and how to develop our officers so as to master information about the businesses of Hong Kong people on the mainland will further implement the 12th National 5-Year Plan as well as prepare for the 13th 5-Year Plan. So those will be the major tasks for the next year. Questions from members? Just now, I've got a few members here, 6 of them. Jeffrey Lam, Martin Liao, Ma Fong Kwok, Dennis Kwok, Wong Teng Kwong, and Sin Chong Tai. 5 minutes per member for the moment. And if that's not enough, we can have a second round. Mr. Jeffrey Lam, thank you, Chairman. Last week, I joined a TDC's promotion tour in the USA, majoring in finance, financial services, and trade. The Permanent Secretary also took part. In the process, we contacted a number of commercial officials, and many SMEs would like to, through the platform of Hong Kong, set up businesses on the mainland.
I can also see that this year, through our mainland ETOs, the SAR government has been putting together promotional and marketing events. I think you can redouble your efforts in this area. When I was talking to buyers, I got the impression that they were not particularly familiar with the situation on the mainland. And I explained to them that if you are not familiar with the Chinese market, then you can work it through Hong Kong, because Hong Kong has been in very close touch with China and has very close linkage with China. And also for an SME that is not well equipped to set up an office or put together activities on the mainland, or is generally unfamiliar with the mainland situation, it may get frustrated. So that's the message that I was trying to get across. And I think the SL government should put together more promotional activities in order to open up more channels for businesses in Hong Kong, so that they can be better equipped to set up businesses on the mainland. And also foreign players can set up businesses on the mainland. Convener, I agree with Mr. Lam Kin Fong. Of course, every year the Trade Development Council puts together marketing efforts in our major markets. Say, for instance, the recent U.S. promotional activity, our theme was Think Asia and Think Hong Kong. And the aim was that when businessmen try to do business in China, they would first of all think of Hong Kong. And so that's one of the ways through which we can promote Hong Kong as a window of opportunity for foreign players who would like to set up businesses in China. And also, I think we should use the same mindset and same mentality in order to promote investment on the mainland via Hong Kong. And Invest Hong Kong indeed has been trying to work this particular message, and especially for SMEs both in Hong Kong and also in overseas. If they find it difficult to get inroads into the mainland market, they can do it through Hong Kong. And in terms of promoting investment, we have set up pilot schemes this year, targeting companies that have just recently been set up, i.e. for overseas players that are interested in setting up companies or outlets in Hong Kong, or are thinking about doing so. Then we are going to provide services to them in order to support their bid to make inroads into the mainland market as well as other Asian markets via Hong Kong. Convener, indeed, we have seen that the SR government has put together such activities on mainland, but they are not enough because at present your efforts are concentrated on Tier 1 cities, and it seems that you have neglected Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. I've come into contact with food manufacturers such as frozen veggie and frozen seafood or freshwater seafood manufacturers, and they would like to make inroads into the mainland market. And at present, they are frustrated, especially with regard to Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. You have done your work for Tier 1 cities, but you should also work on Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities so that you can help SMEs in Hong Kong to penetrate those markets. Of course, our offices, such as those in USA, not only work the Tier 1 cities. Actually, they are touring around mainland China in order to look at other cities to see whether there are business opportunities there as well. And the Trade Development Council is also always on the lookout for new markets and new opportunities. And if you have any particular cities or areas that you would like us to work on, you can always let us know. Mr. Liu Chang-kong, according to last week's media report, some China-Hong Kong enterprises have tried to use the same consignment of goods and make around 200 trips in and out of the custom points and immigration points at our boundary, and that creates a false picture in order to get the more bank lendings and bank loans and so on and so forth. And in March this year, the trade figure has been inflated by 93%, which is a record high, and also 1.5 times. Of course, you are trying to cut back on custom clearance procedures in order to streamline the operation, but at the same time, we also create room for fraud and for cheating. And so I'd like to know, first of all, how are you going to optimize this, and how are you going to strike a balance between loosening up and tightening up? And secondly, these false figures and inflated figures are meant to defraud the bank. And so that is going to put the banks under pressure, and also that would create more opportunities for insurance services and demand for insurance services and financial services, and that would create more opportunities for money laundering. So I'd like to know what are the response measures that you can put together for this. And thirdly, the mainland accounts for 35% of all direct investment into Hong Kong, and so the mainland is a very important source of investment. And so I'd like to know how the government is going to ensure that there is no inflated element in the figures for direct investment for mainland China, so that we can get the real picture instead of getting the false picture. Indeed, there is a lot of cargo and freight being transported between Hong Kong and the mainland. And all we can do when it comes to law enforcement is to do risk assessment on where possibly criminal activities might occur. In terms of preserving the integrity of the entire custom system, that has to be balanced against conveniencing business operation. And all along, we've been seeking to streamline the operation because we don't want duplicate efforts, instead of simply simplifying the check procedures. And the paper will tell you that we are relying on technology in order to reduce duplication of clearance and check procedures, and that is all for conveniencing business operation. As for how are we going to curb criminal activities, all the custom can do is to carry out risk management and also risk containment. And we cannot inspect each and every one of the containers. And all we can do is to do risk assessment in order to know where criminal activities are most likely to occur. And as for enforcement action against contraband items, that is our priority. And I have indeed paid attention to media reports saying that some cargo consignments are being taken in and out of the boundary points 20 to 30 times in order to inflate the trade figures. They might have done that within the law, unless, of course, they have made false declarations. they might not have contravened any law if they're simply taking the consignments in and out repetitively through the boundary points. As for the problem with the banks, I'm afraid I can't give you an answer here because it goes to what kind of documentation is tendered by the borrowers to the banks, and also what are the loan conditions, and so on and so forth. As for investment figures and whether they are being artificially inflated, we've got our Census and Statistics Department using international methods and standards in order to compile the relevant statistics. If you're interested in knowing more about any particular entries or breakdowns of the figures, of course we can refer your requests for more information and clarification to the relevant authority. Mr. Liu, do you want to follow up? Have all parts of the question been answered? Indeed, we are all for conveniencing business operation, but if possible, fraudulent activities may bring more risk to banks and to the financial sector, and also the overall trade figures become inflated and therefore inaccurate, that might be very impactful because we are relying on the accuracy of such figures. And so can you go back to the authority and look into this? Indeed, I can talk to the expert department to see whether they're concerned about this. It all depends on how big the problem is. So far, we have only uncovered one case. Right, time is up. The Secretary has not been able to answer all parts of the question, and so can the questions be referred to the relevant authority, and through Secretary, reply be given in due course?
Mr. Ma Fung Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. In the administration paper, CEPA is mentioned. I'd like to ask specific questions. There are certain specific problems under CEPA that cannot be solved. For example, 30-odd films can come under collaboration projects. But what about purely Hong Kong-produced films? What if there's no collaboration? At present, there are still great difficulties for such films to enter the mainland market. The number of such films is low. The recovery rate is also low, and for the two provinces that speak Cantonese, we still cannot allow these films to enter the mainland market. Paragraph 31 of the paper says that certain rights have been obtained in terms of copyrights. We actually would like to be able to publish our publications on the mainland, but we can't do that yet. And apart from that, for creative industries like stage performances, two government departments are responsible. Previously, we were told that the Home Affairs Bureau was responsible. But for creative industries, they come under the Commerce and Economic Development Bureau. So if the Bureau does not do anything, how can such industries develop? We're not just talking about stage performances. A lot can be covered under creative industries, and we don't yet see measures to help these creative industries. So I'd like to have an answer today. As for the ETOs on the mainland, I mentioned many times that these ETOs should also be responsible for the promotion of art and culture and creative industries. But all along, the ETOs have not been responsible for such tasks. Permanent Secretary, I'll try to answer the first part of the question, and Ms. Chang can answer the second part of the question. For creative industries, the Honourable Member mentioned a number of areas which are still not open under CEPA. If there are demands, we'll continue to explore with the mainland authorities what new measures can be adopted under CEPA to address those demands. We'll explore such demands with the mainland authorities. In the administration, there are different mechanisms for such discussions. We are responsible for the overall operation of SEPA, and our main counterpart is the Ministry of Commerce. We'll discuss implementation issues related to SEPA. Other policy bureaus can also relay demands of various industries to the mainland authorities through us under SEPA. But of course, there are areas beyond our portfolio. Then we have to contact the relevant bureaus and ministries on the mainland. I've heard those comments of the Honourable Member, and our policy bureaus, as well as our bureau, did raise those issues with the mainland authorities under SEPA. Whether or not the mainland can immediately open up all those markets, it really depends on the various supplementary agreements under SEPA, and will adopt a gradual approach. But I can say that in our discussions with the mainland on SEPA, we did raise those issues. What about promotion of culture and creative industries by ETOs? Well, we did discuss that request. In principle, we agree. Culture and heritage is a soft muscle, so to speak. And we did organize promotion activities for arts and culture. We also have certain arts festivals on the mainland. In fact, all ETOs will have to share this work, and there must be a synergy effect. Later, I'll talk to the mainland ETOs to see how they can promote Hong Kong films and the art and culture of Hong Kong, so as to make use of our soft muscle, so to speak. Perhaps you should take this up with Mr. Ma Fong Kok. The industries have been talking about this for many years. We've reached a bottleneck. We have to do it. The ETOs organize music festivals, concerts. I think they should also promote art and culture. Recently, we had a major activity in the United States. Our ETOs spent a lot of months in preparation to organize that big event. Of course, we have to examine whether laws and rules and regulations will affect the export of Hong Kong, etc., etc. Through the normal circulars and notices issued by the Trade and Industry Department, we disseminate all sorts of information. Mr. Dennis Kwok. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just now I mentioned Shanghai development. I wonder if the Permanent Secretary has had the opportunity to read a report from the Law Society in November 2011. We have to examine whether the laws of Hong Kong can be partially adopted in Shanghai. Shanghai can offer huge opportunities of development for the profession. And recently, this was a sticking point in my discussion with the profession. There were huge hindrances. The Shenzhen CPG did discuss this. That is to make use of Article 81, an enabling provision by the CPG to implement the law of contract, etc., in Shanghai. I wonder if the Permanent Secretary can examine what the hindrances are on the mainland, and whether or not we can sit down and talk. Ms. Chang, for Shanghai, broadly speaking, it's a city for pilot schemes. to put it in an uglier way, we can be very bold in offering suggestions for Shanghai. Through the administration, the DOJ, we've suggested that our lawyers be engaged in joint ventures in Shanghai, and arbitration cases as well as law of contract cases can also be covered. And in a recent Shanghai meeting, we discussed the fundamental differences between the legal systems on both sides. There are also different rules and regulations in relation to financial services, and not just laws. The policies and strategies of various bureaus and ministries on the mainland are different from ours. So it's a very complicated issue. So at the January meeting in Beijing, we tried our very best. Whatever can be tried in Shanghai, we would like to try. As the Permanent Secretary said, we've not yet got a firm reply. If there's any opportunity, we'll discuss again with the profession. So you are saying that to apply our laws in Shanghai will still be very difficult. Mr. Kwok, do you have any concrete suggestions? Of course, we understand the difficulties. Different bureaus and ministries may have their own policies and strategies. But what about issues like the law of contract? Can it be partially implemented in Shanghai? And can we further bring Hong Kong's laws into Shanghai? And can we boldly put forth suggestions that Hong Kong laws be applied in certain areas? I hope that the Bureau can follow up on this and regularly report to us the latest progress, what issues have been raised. Ms. Chang, will you raise this issue? I have to state, first of all, that under one country, two systems, if you want to adopt a broad brush approach by applying Hong Kong laws in Shanghai or any particular city on the mainland, it will not be possible. But if you talk about pilot schemes, if you're talking about joint ventures, if there are disputes, can we use the laws of Hong Kong, the contract law and basic law in Shanghai, for example? Can we set up a bridgehead somewhere? We're still working hard towards that goal. Well, he wants some promotion in Shanghai, but you haven't been able to do anything. Progress has been slow. Hong Kong businessmen are more familiar with Hong Kong's commercial laws and contract laws. Can you remind them? Maybe there's a chance of success. Just tell them that LegCo members have raised this. Madam Chairman, you have made a very good summary. Oh, that's what we'll do. Next. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, my question is very simple. Although this paper is quite long, 10 pages, it is not touched upon EFA. Perhaps I haven't read that thoroughly. We, of course, have CEPA, and the CPG will develop the so-called EFA with Taiwan. Of course, it's also discussing with ASEAN on new agreements. In fact, we're already lagging behind ECFA. It seems that under ECFA, the brokers of Taiwan can have a holding share of 51% on a mainland firm. So what is the difference between CEPA and ECFA? And what are we striving for in future? What are our new goals? Let me answer this. I've absolutely noted what Mr. Sin Chung Kai said. Between the mainland and Taiwan, they've had some discussions, and I've noted the progress. For the service industries, recently they've come up with a checklist for commodity trade. I understand that they're still negotiating. In the short term, they will reach agreement on certain fronts for service industries. The message is very clear for Hong Kong. CEPA will remain a trade agreement with the highest degree of freedom. Under ECFA, if eventually they arrive at certain open-up measures which are not included in CEPA at the moment, I'm confident that in future supplementary agreements under CEPA, similar open-up measures will be applicable to Hong Kong. We've been following up on that issue. I don't understand what you mean by follow-up. Will you give us a comparison table for CEPA and ECFA? I know Hong Kong cannot compare with Taiwan. For example, we can't compare with them in terms of agricultural products. But can you give us a comparison between CEPA and ECFA so that we know in what way we're lagging behind? After they have reached a new agreement, if we have relevant information, we can give members a comparison table.
Details to make.
What about now? Can you do a comparison now? Because the details are not yet available, they have not formally released any details. Now, for the details that are already available, and judging from those, I can tell you that Hong Kong CEPA does not lag behind ECFA in any way. But of course, there are still many areas that they need to hammer out. And so when they have finalized everything, then we can do another comparison. Mrs. Sin, do you want a comparison at this point in time? I think when CEPA is up for another round of discussion, it would be very appreciated if you could furnish us with information on comparison between CEPA and ECFA at that point in time. And so if there are new things being offered under CEPA, we would like to compare them with the latest things being offered under ECFA. Mr. Wong Ting Kong, after the individual traveller scheme has been launched, for mainland travellers, many sectors in Hong Kong have benefited greatly, such as the hotel and catering industry. Of course, when the market is booming, it should be a good thing. But recently, we have encountered incidents such as the shortage and shortfall of milk powder or formula powder because of large-scale acquisition by mainland buyers. And Hong Kong has come up with a gag order, so to speak, in order to curb the export of milk powder. And so it goes to show that there is only so much Hong Kong can accommodate. And recently there have been surveys in order to try to look for sources of grievances, and so that we can do something in order to erase those sources of grievances on the part of Hong Kong residents against mainland travellers. I'd like to know what is the progress on those surveys, and also have you looked at findings from any similar surveys? And are there any ways for us to upgrade and enhance Hong Kong's handling and accommodating capacities for mainland travellers? Secondly, I've been saying this for a very long time. I hope that the Bureau can, through quasi-government organizations such as Trade Development Council set up Hong Kong commerce centers or shopping malls or a particular building on the mainland where one-stop service can be provided for Hong Kong SMEs operating on mainland so that they can be based there. And those structures could be used for housing, showrooms, or display facilities by Hong Kong's SMEs operating on mainland. And also, those services could be to help SMEs in order to deal with tax requirements and custom requirements and other requirements on the mainland. I understand that civilian organizations from the commerce and industry sector have already set up such bases, but unfortunately they are not of a scale large enough. So I want to know whether the Bureau can really take this up. It seems that you have given us positive response in the past towards such suggestion, but it seems that you have failed to follow up on the idea. And so when can you have good news for us? Now, is it that we have only heard noises from the staircase, but nobody has come down? Indeed, the individual traveller scheme has brought a lot of business opportunities in Hong Kong and has helped Hong Kong's employment by creating lots and lots of jobs. The other side of the coin, of course, is that individual traveller scheme have created pressure for Hong Kong residents in terms of day-to-day living. And the SAR government has begun an internal assessment in order to gauge the impact from the individual traveller scheme. The study is ongoing. And when it has produced findings, we'll take them to LegCo, of course. Now, for Hong Kong's handling capacity and how much Hong Kong can handle and how many travelers can handle, before answering that, we have to bear in mind that Hong Kong is an international city, and Hong Kong cannot afford to say that we're going to turn away travelers and we're going to turn away foreigners. And what we can do instead is for the Tourism Commission to look at the anticipated growth of visitors and also how can we tailor the growth in our infrastructure and the growth in our tourism facilities in order to deal with the growth in visitors properly. And the studies are still not completed yet. We are going to come back to you in due course. As for helping SMEs to open up markets on the mainland, through the Trade Development Council, we have already increased the number of Hong Kong products design galleries. And apart from the design galleries, the Trade Development Council has also begun a new scheme, i.e. opening up shops in the malls on mainland in many of the cities, especially Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. And indeed, we do understand that SMEs may find it very difficult to penetrate Hong Kong markets because of the lack of resources. And so it is our hope that through the design galleries of TDC as well as the shop-in-shop scheme of TDC, many more spots and outlets can be made available for Hong Kong SMEs to showcase their products on the mainland. Now, can you let us know how many of such facilities will be opened up and where are they? For the design galleries, I think we have already launched 2 new ones. And also, let me check the figures. Now, concerning the design galleries that you have already established or you plan to establish, the convener is still speaking. So can you let us know exactly how many design galleries have been set up and how many will be set up, and also how many shop-in-shops will be set up and have already been set up? Now, on this subject, convener, I would like to ask the Bureau for information on design galleries that are already up and running and also design galleries that will be set up. And aside from that, can you also let us know what are the organizations and institutions and companies that are using services from the design galleries and shop-in-shops? And also, exactly how Hong Kong SMEs can make themselves eligible for services offered by design galleries and shop-in-shops. Because SMEs really don't know where to begin. And it seems that they have to line up in a very long queue for services offered. Mr. Chung Kwok Ban? Basically, I'm also on the same line of questions. Of course, the Permanent Secretary has attempted to give an answer. But the fact is, the TDC is also facing problems with regard to modus operandi of design galleries and shop-in-shops. They have difficulties with declaring tax and also writing tax invoices and so on and so forth, and they have to go through intermediaries, and that may not be a very healthy situation. And so it would be best, as suggested by Mr. Wong Ting Kong, if the SAR government can actually come up with a specialized building, especially targeting the SMEs in order to offer display spaces for the SMEs, and it would be very helpful in solving the problem. My other question has to do with import and export figures from Custom and Excise Department. The news reports are saying that mainland enterprises are trying to take their cargo shipments in and out of the boundaries 50 times every day in order to inflate the figures. But if our boundary points are open for 24 hours operation, then if anyone tries to take a cargo shipment across the boundary 50 times a day, then it would mean that every half an hour they try to take it through the boundary point. And so wouldn't that be suspicious at all to the authorities? Wouldn't that look suspicious at all to Customs and Excise Department? Wouldn't they look into such suspicious cases? Now, even though they may be operating within the law, but still that must look suspicious. I do not have detailed information on this particular case. Now, if the Customs and Excise Department has got any reason to be suspicious about any particular users of the custom clearance service, and of course they would act, and they have their own risk assessment system and risk containment system. And I have to remind you that every day the flow of cargo and flow of people across the boundary points is simply very, very, very large in volume. And so we have to work out our priorities, and we have to focus our resources, first of all, towards criminal activities that have become our priorities. Unfortunately, I really do not have information on that particular case with me today. As for sales outlets for SMEs on the mainland, during the past few years, the commerce and industry sector has been suggesting to Hong Kong government that there should be a specialized sale outlet being created for Hong Kong SMEs. And the SAR government has got reservation about this because different enterprises have got different priority areas and different target areas and different target clientele. And so it would be hard for taxpayers' money to be used for any particular group of clientele or any particular specific business activities. And we've been in talks with the chambers of commerce, and we have impressed upon them that if they come across any particular areas or any regions that they feel the business might thrive, the government has got various subsidy schemes that can target such potential areas. And this is a bigger likelihood when compared to the idea of building a specialized sale outlet for Hong Kong SMEs. Of course, I do appreciate your difficulties, but our CE, C.Y. Leung, has made exactly such a promise when he was campaigning for the position of CE, i.e. to set up specialized sales outlets for SMEs in Hong Kong to operate on the mainland. And so if he has made such a promises under his campaign activities, then he should make good on them. Through TDC's design galleries and shop-in-shops, it is our hope that this same goal can be achieved. What we are interested is to help Hong Kong's enterprises, especially SMEs, to penetrate mainland market, and we are trying to find the most effective way to help them to promote their sales on the mainland. And design galleries and shop-in-shop, of course, is one of the possibilities. And after they have been up and running for a certain period of time, we're going to review their efficacy. Secretary, I think you can consider member suggestions further, because TDC will only look at the bigger picture. And so, can you be more specific and more target-oriented when it comes to your support efforts? Say you can target a particular sector, particular industry, particular target clientele. Maybe you don't have to actually build the structure. You can think about setting aside a particular lot at the boundary area between Hong Kong and mainland in order to create space for sales outlet, and I think that could help. Now, if you're talking about putting aside a piece of land along the boundary between Hong Kong and mainland, I think that's quite different from the suggestion just now. The suggestion just now was to ask the government to build a particular structure on the mainland in order to set up sales outlet. If we're talking about building a structure as a specialized sales outlet, it would be very difficult for the government to do. Exactly, that's why we are trying to settle for something second best, i.e. setting up some facilities on a piece of land that you allocate along the boundary between Hong Kong and mainland.
That's why we would like to collaborate with the trades and industries. I hope that they can organize themselves together so that the government can offer support. All right, the message is very clear. They want to collaborate with the trades and industries. Next, Mr. Lam Tai Fai. Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, the administration said that in accordance with the development needs of the trades and industries, the CEPA should be expanded in terms of development and services, and a liaison group has been set up. I understand that C.Y. Leung mentioned that. I think the Ministry of Commerce on the mainland as well as the CDB were leading that effort. For the municipalities, we should further implement CEPA. So I'd like to know the latest progress of the liaison group. And as I said, the Ministry of Commerce and the TID of Hong Kong have been taking the lead. Are there any representatives from the trades and industries? As for those trades and industries with more obstacles, I'd like to know what they are and what the obstacles are. I would like to know whether your understanding is the same as ours. The CS for administration also has a steering committee on cooperation with the mainland. So between the liaison group and the steering committee, what is the division of work? Permanent Secretary, let me first explain the new working group under CEPA. Perhaps in a moment, I'll ask Ms. Chang to explain the steering committee under the CS. Of course, there are huge differences between the two. For the working group, members will recall that in the policy address of the CE, it said that to respond to the aspirations of the trades and industries, it's discovered that laws and rules and regulations in certain provinces and municipalities have not been sufficient. Mainland authorities may not have deep enough knowledge about Hong Kong's situation. So together with the Ministry of Commerce, we agreed to set up this new working group, which will only focus on the implementation of CEPA. It's not for the SARG to decide which trades and industries have encountered problems. Before our meetings, we'll consult the relevant trades and industries. We'll discuss which areas under CEPA are found to be problematic by our trades and industries. For example, certain open-up measures have been promised, but when it comes to certain provinces and municipalities, there were problems. Of course, we did discuss individual problems with the Ministry of Commerce. For this new working group, it is a new mechanism led by the Ministry of Commerce with representatives from other provinces and municipalities as well as the SARG. Now, this is an official working group, so there's no representative from trades and industries. Before we hold our meetings, we broadly consult various trades and industries. I mentioned those provinces and municipalities with more problems. That's why this time we've brought in representatives of provinces and municipalities. It's rather difficult to arrange for representatives of different trades and industries to join. Today, coincidentally, the relevant working group is holding a meeting. They will focus on Guangdong today. After that meeting, I'll see what they've discussed and report back to this panel later. Yes, Ms. Chang? For this steering committee under the CS4 administration is mainly an internal steering committee within the SARG for coordination and policy decision. In the CE's policy address, there's a portion on collaboration with the mainland. So apart from enhancing the functions and roles of the ETOs, the terms of reference for the steering committee has been formulated is for coordination and collaboration. We have a number of collaboration projects with Guangdong, Shenzhen, PRD, Pan-PRD with 9 provinces and 2 municipalities, what we have to strive for, what our foci should be, etc., etc., all come under this steering committee. And for transition from the 12th 5-year plan to the 13th 12-year plan, we'll see whether we can keep the dedicated chapter on Hong Kong. That's also the focus of the steering committee for the coming years. So it will cover other provinces and municipalities. No. We're now 3:35 p.m. We should proceed to the next item on the agenda. Do we need to continue with this item, or should we put it on the July agenda? It doesn't matter. You just offer your suggestions. I'll relay them to Mr. Vincent Fang, the chairman. Madam Chairman, there are still a lot to discuss. If possible, we should put this on the July agenda. Yes, I will pass this message to the chairman. We'll then proceed to item 5 on the agenda. Thank you. Thank you, the two permanent secretaries. I'd like to inform members that item 5 on the agenda is Progress Report on Research and Development Centres 2012-2013 with 5 centres. So we have reports from the 5 centres. They'll have a 20-minute video to show to members. Members, would you like to watch the video first before asking questions, or would you like to have a verbal report from them and then ask questions? Oh, you would like to watch the video first. All right. Welcome, representatives from the government and the 5 centers, R&D centers. Should we show the video first? Or Janet? Janet, would you like to make a report first? No problem for me. I have to clarify the procedures first. So we'll show the video first.
我係香港生產力促進局科技發展副總裁潘永生。香港生產力促進局轄下嘅汽車零部件研發中心，一直致力開發嶄新科技，並將技術成果商品化，推動香港汽車工業嘅發展。而家同大家介紹其中3個市場導向項目嘅進展，分別係電動車智能快速充電站、先進駕駛員輔助系統以及 MOST 150車用資訊娛樂系統。
我哋一直致力研發呢個電動車嘅快速充電技術，為本地不同嘅電動車咧提供標準啦、中速啦同埋快速嘅充電選擇。比如我哋呢部20千瓦嘅快速充電站啦，可以幫一部電動嘅房車咧由冇電充到有電，都只需要45分鐘就完成，所以係非常之快嘅。自從2011年11月開始，我哋設有2台嘅快速充電站進行實地嘅試用，至今咧已經為超過200架次嘅電動車進行快速充電，足夠行駛6500公里。其實亦都相當於等同由天水圍去到機場走160次。
我哋公司好高興能夠同 APAS 合作，通過科研形成自有知識產權、自有品牌嘅快速充電站產品，能夠迅速及加快我哋公司進入呢個商機無限嘅市場，亦都可以支持香港嘅電動車充電基建嘅發展。
未來咧，我哋會朝呢個更快、更靈活嘅充電技術發展嘅。我哋亦都有計劃開發呢個歐美標準嘅超快速充電站啦，同埋流動充電車，讓呢個電動車嘅使用者更為方便。
先進駕駛員輔助系統係新一代嘅主動式安全系統，主要利用車內鏡頭偵測路面情況，為駕駛員提供同駕駛安全有關嘅資訊。由於呢套系統需要高水平嘅圖像技術，開發時間同成本龐大，以致一般企業難以進入呢個市場。針對呢個問題，我哋就為業界開發咗3個系統，包括前方防撞、行車線預警同埋市場仍未普及嘅盲區警報系統。
我係香港復康會嘅總監 Rex。香港房會同生產力局合作，喺我哋嘅復康巴士安裝一套駕駛員輔助系統，希望有助提升復康巴士嘅安全性，預防意外發生。
2013年年尾，我哋將會同4個政府部門合作，包括物流服務處、水務處、消防處同埋警務處試驗安裝呢套系統。另外，我哋都會同港鐵研究喺列車上邊試驗前方防撞技術。
我哋根據 MOST 150標準研發出現時最先進、傳輸速度最高嘅汽車專用資訊娛樂系統。每套系統可以連接最多60個顯示屏，乘客只需要撳下個顯示屏就可以選擇資訊娛樂節目，甚至購物。MOST 150系統已經成功商品化，一家本地企業已經同泰國公司 Power Golden MOST Channel Company Limited 合作，喺未來1年喺500部巴士安裝呢個系統。 預計係近年來金額最大嘅一宗技術商品化項目。
除咗呢3個項目之外，汽車零部件研發中心已經成功開發咗多項先進汽車零部件嘅項目。通過技術轉移，有助對本地汽車零部件行業進行產業提升，亦都可以同時把握內地龐大嘅汽車市場商機，創造可持續競爭力。我哋會秉承呢個宗旨，協助行業長遠嘅發展。
大家好，我係應科院嘅行政總裁張念坤。我好高興向大家報告應科院最近嘅工作成績。過去1年，應科院成功咁將好多創新嘅研發成果轉移咗俾業界，變成商品，尤其係應用喺教育、醫療保健、流動通訊、手機攝影同 3D 影視娛樂呢幾方面，得到業界合作伙伴嘅讚賞。但係我哋唔會自滿，會繼續努力深入研發。以下我向大家報告幾個成功嘅例子。
應科院同本港一間大學合作研發嘅電子教室，採用光學觸控軟件配合特別設計嘅白板軟件，大大加強課堂嘅互動，例如即時投票、發問、課堂測驗等等。唔單止俾到師生全新嘅體驗，仲提升教育學嘅效率，獲得教育局嘅大力支持。而家已經喺本地20幾間學校試用。呢個產品成本低，5個業界嘅伙伴已經獲得授權將佢商品化，並且正在量產，產量將會超過1萬套。
我們利用應科院的先進技術，開發了多款電子白板和觸控屏產品。這一些產品有着更快、更準確的觸控效果，還有明顯的成本優勢。應科院的技術確實能夠幫助我們成功競佔市場。
應科院研發嘅電子書包係一套課室管理系統，可以管理學習活動同埋電子學習器材，有助於提升教學效率，仲幫到學生進行互動學習同埋協作學習，有效咁提升學習興趣。
我哋好高興同應科院嘅專家合作，研發出 ALS 系統，滿足到呢方面嘅需求。ALS 系統喺2013年贏得香港資訊及通訊科技獎金獎，喺20幾間參賽公司當中脫穎而出。喺推出咗之後呢，好快已經受到學校嘅認同同埋採用。
喺生物醫學電子範疇，應科院嘅研發包括咗呢一套為顯微鏡產業開發嘅高速病理切片數碼化系統，可以用喺例如子宮頸癌測試。佢高速而穩定嘅掃描，提供高質素嘅病理學細胞數碼化切片，方便醫護人員讀取、討論、分析、診斷病情。
透過應科院嘅幫助，我哋唔單止得到政府嘅研發資助，仲可以加強同醫院同大學之間嘅合作同測試。
應科院亦都研發咗一套智慧型嘅血氧同埋心跳方案。通過呢個方案呢，我哋可以用較細嘅血氧同埋心跳模組，令到佢整合喺唔同嘅流度智慧型嘅產品入邊。咁包括一啲智慧型嘅手機啦，或者手錶，令到啲人呢喺唔同嘅地方都可以測量到健康情況。而呢個方案呢，亦都成功咁商品化啦。我哋已經將呢個技術轉移咗俾3間香港同埋國內嘅公司，咁亦都因應本港同埋國內唔同嘅需要呢，我哋為佢設計咗同埋定製咗唔同嘅方案嘅。我哋亦都正喺度進一步研發緊心血管嘅監察儀，可以用於血壓嘅連續測量同埋遠程嘅醫療嘅。
應科院針對手機響攝影功能上未能滿足消費者嘅地方，研發微型攝影模組。第一階段嘅研發集中響光學防震，響2010年得到我哋技術獨家授權嘅愛佩儀光電技術有限公司，今日已經將我哋嘅防震模組用咗響一款世界知名品牌嘅手機裏面，全球發售。
我哋香港愛佩儀光電公司同應科院嘅合作相當成功。應科院技術唔單止係先進，而且能夠適合市場嘅需要。我期望應科院成為愛佩儀光電嘅長期合作伙伴，協助我哋進一步發展國際性嘅高科技市場嘅產品。
新階段嘅研發響自動對焦方面，我哋已經研發出全球最細而又能夠維持高質素畫像嘅攝影模組。 俾到業界合作伙伴好強嘅競爭優勢，攻佔龐大嘅環球手機市場。
流動通訊技術已經由第3代嘅 3G 進入咗第4代嘅 4G， 而 LTE 就係世界公認嘅 4G 標準制式。應科院同喺美國納斯達克上市嘅合作伙伴喺2012年全球移動通訊大會上面一齊向買家展示咗我哋領先業界嘅 LTE 最新研發成果。另外，同我哋共同研發出全球首張 TD-LTE 用戶端數據卡嘅北京創藝視訊，以應科院嘅技術同人才為班底，喺2012年8月喺香港成立咗研發中心。
川藝很高興獲得應科院技術獨家授權，還有26位應科院技術專才的加盟，為我們開拓內地移動通訊市場提供了強力的支持。
應科院嘅 2D、3D 視頻轉換平台，可以將 2D 嘅影像實時轉換成高質素嘅 3D 畫面。我哋運用咗創新嘅 3D 影像處理技術，分析每個畫面，製作出最真實自然嘅 3D 場景。呢個平台咧可以用喺各種嘅電視啦、平面電腦啦、智能手機上面。3D 效果甚至可以裸眼欣賞，無需佩戴 3D 眼鏡。娛樂之外咧，亦可以用喺教學同醫療上。呢個技術咧已經得到美國客戶用喺產品裏面大量生產，喺歐美市場發售。
你好，我係香港紡織及成衣研發中心行政總裁郭義文。香港嘅紡織及製衣業咧發展係歷史悠久，為咗保持市場嘅競爭力，我哋要不斷創新，研發先進嘅技術。呢個就係香港紡織及成衣研發中心成立嘅目的。過去嗰6年，我哋已經進行咗84項研究，其中56項已經完成啦。科研機構同業界係我哋嘅重要合作伙伴。喺2012年，我哋喺業界得到嘅贊助已經超過20%。喺推動行業技術發展上面，我哋集中資源提高業界可持續發展嘅能力，利用先進技術進行更多高增值嘅生產，減低生產成本之餘，又可以提高生產力。另外，藉著開發新嘅技術，希望可以令大眾得益，履行社會責任。以下為咗令大家多啲明白我哋嘅工作，我想介紹幾個對社會及業界有貢獻嘅項目。呢個計劃係香港紡織及成衣研發中心 LSCM 及應科園合作研發嘅項目，利用 RFID 技術為護老院開發追蹤系統，俾患有腦退化症嘅長者着上內置 RFID 標籤嘅外套之後，如果有走失或者擅離院舍，護理人員可以容易追蹤，揾得翻佢哋。
喺我哋中心照顧嘅長者裏邊咧，好多都係有呢一個腦退化症嘅。佢哋其實都有一個特徵咧，就係經常都會遊走。所以咧，我哋嘅護理員咧，經常都要保持警覺，避免我哋嘅長者會走失。我哋期望咧，呢一個新研發嘅系統咧，可以幫助監察我哋嘅長者啦。如果佢哋有走失嘅時候咧，監察系統咧就會即時發出聲響，咁可以提醒翻我哋嘅護理員，避免佢哋走失啦，或者係盡快揾翻佢哋。咁樣咧可以令到我哋服務咧更加之周全。
這是一個與香港消防署合作的項目，其目的是為了研究消防人員在執行任務和在訓練過程當中所面臨的熱應力和所需要的熱保護。我們與香港消防署緊密的合作，在西九龍訓練中心進行了系統的大量的創作實驗，收集了大量的科學數據，在此基礎上進行計算機仿真功能設計，並制定出合理的技術指標，以保證消防員在執行任務過程當中的舒適性和安全性。
傳統嘅紡織品染色需要用到大量嘅水，對環境影響好大。呢個項目所發展嘅超能界二氧化碳染色工藝，能夠利用工業所排放嘅二氧化碳作為載體，喺超能界狀態下把染料染到紡織品上。整個染色過程唔需要用到水，亦唔需要添加化學嘅助劑， 染料同二氧化碳亦都可以循環使用，能徹底咁解決傳統染整工藝嘅水污染問題。目前呢個技術正集中發展喺天然纖維嘅物料染色，例如棉同埋羊毛等，透過染料嘅改造，獲得染色材料嘅共價鍵，從而使佢能夠應用喺超臨界二氧化碳中，為天然紡織品進行染色。
流淖纱這個技術呢，是經過就是香港政府、理工大學和 Hong Kong Rita 很多年的支持。對廠商來講呢，它提高生產效率大概20%到40%，另外它可以省電。曾經統計過呢，就是大概1萬噸的紗，可以省到大概300多萬度的電。
我哋嘅中心嘅研發不單有利於紡織製衣業界，對社會唔同層面都有幫助。例如運動員、紀律部隊、醫護界，例如係糖尿病人、住院舍嘅老人家。到目前為止，我哋已經同業界簽訂咗21項授權協議，商品化收入超過970萬港元。除咗經濟效益以外，中心亦創造咗唔少科研及發展嘅機會。曾經同我哋合作過嘅研究員超過680位，同各地研發機構簽訂18項合作嘅備忘錄。我哋所發展嘅技術已經獲得咗26項知識產權、15項本地同國際嘅獎項，當中包括今年4月喺日內瓦舉行嘅第41屆國際發明展。呢啲成就都有幫助香港邁向多元化嘅知識型經濟發展。
大家好，我係黃廣陽 ，LSCM 香港物流及供應鏈管理研發中心，一直積極研發適用於物流及供應鏈行業嘅應用科技，協助相關行業提升競爭力。而家等我同大家介紹一下幾個主要嘅項目。首先係 E-lock 電子鎖系統嘅進一步應用。
自從去年初為咗配合香港海關嘅 ITFS， 即係多模式聯運轉運貨物便利計劃，我哋採用咗8項技術，包括電子鎖技術、衛星定位、海關專用嘅密碼、數據加密、自動遙控、簡易界面、操作相容以及數據互通，研發出 E-lock 電子鎖監控系統，簡化咗轉口貨物清關程序，令通關更加便捷。電子鎖監控系統喺業界應用，亦得到正面嘅回應同埋顯著嘅成效。我哋而家正積極支援香港海關同內地海關嘅合作，探討喺兩地實施跨境一鎖分段監管嘅技術，縮短通關嘅時間，同時進一步提升跨境物流業嘅效率。
香港海關對於呢次同 LSCM 嘅合作非常滿意，好有成果。我哋將會繼續合作，透過科技嘅應用，緊密監察貨物嘅實時動態同埋狀況，進一步減低轉口貨物需要接受重複查驗嘅機會，大大提高清關效率。
另外 ，LSCM 開發咗一套應用喺病人、設備、醫護人員甚至嬰兒嘅位機追蹤應用技術。
如果初生嬰兒喺未經授權情況底下離開醫院嘅監管範圍，系統咧係會向醫護人員同埋院方發出警報通知嘅。對於呢個獨特標籤咧，我哋有創新技術，而家申請緊發明專利。
我哋期望通過今次合作，進一步加強醫院病房嘅保安。利用 LSCM 技術，醫護人員可以知道病人同嬰兒嘅位置，確保安全。
建造業係香港嘅支柱產業之一。LSCM 同理工大學合作，開發咗一項嶄新嘅 PCMS 系統，嚟提升工地現場嘅管理同偵測，減少地盤意外發生。
通過 LSCM 的 LBS 技術和理工大學的 BRM 技術，我們開發了一套主控式建築管理系統 PCMS， 以提高工人對潛在危險的感知力。所以當工人身處危險工作環境，系統會及時提供預警信號，避免意外發生。
我好高興見到 LSCM 同埋 PolyU 一齊研究嘅 PCMS 系統，有可能減少地盤意外發生，保障工人嘅安全。
基於業界對打擊冒牌產品困難重重， LSCM 研發咗新嘅方法同技術，防止假冒或複製嘅標籤，達到產品核證及防偽嘅效果。產品標籤會採用先進嘅無線射頻識別 RFID 技術，以防止冒牌複製標籤。
LSCM 技術能夠核證產品嘅真偽，為消費者把關。我哋好高興同 LSCM 合作，係真係假，一拍就知。
LSCM 嘅技術協助咗我哋為唔同嘅客戶設計咗獨特同優質嘅電子標籤，令到我哋嘅客戶非常滿意。
呢項技術咧對我管理咧係好有幫助，亦都喺市場上令啲消費者對我哋產品增加信心。
除咗研發工作 ，LSCM 一直致力推動業界應用。今年2月尾，我哋舉行咗首屆 LSCM 物流展暨物流及科技交流會，得到16間商會嘅支持，同24間物聯網科技公司參展，總共邀請咗超過300多位業界人士出席，同進行交流。
我哋可以利用 RFID 嘅技術咧，去 check in 同埋 check out 嗰樣嘢。譬如話，我哋有一件藏品咧離開個倉啊，或者離開咗個圖書館嘅時候咧，我哋利用呢個技術咧都可以知道咧嗰件藏品去咗邊度。
LSCM 會繼續進行具有針對性嘅科研工作，同推廣業界嘅廣泛應用，強化競爭優勢，鞏固香港物流業喺國際嘅領先地位。
大家好，我係吳家明，係納米及先進材料研發院NAMI嘅 CEO。納米係一個尺度，即係10億分之1米。呢個尺度嘅材料咧有不同嘅功能，應用範疇都好廣泛，從再生能源至環保技術。為改善環境同埋可持續發展，世界各地都非常重視再生及環保能源嘅研發。我想同大家介紹下咧，喺個領域裏面NAMI 同埋業界合作嘅2個大型研發項目。
非晶硅薄膜太陽能電池。NAMI 同杜邦太陽能合作，先後研究2個有關非晶硅薄膜太陽能電池嘅項目。第一個係單結非晶硅薄膜太陽能電池研究，我哋成功將轉換效率提升至超過7.5%。有關嘅太陽能發電板已經安裝喺將軍澳醫院天台上運作，能提供10千瓦峰值電力。我哋目前與杜邦太陽能正進行第2個合作項目，多結非晶硅薄膜太陽能電池研究，利用多層非晶硅同微晶硅薄膜太陽能電池，增加太陽光嘅吸收，從而提高轉換效率。
The milestone in the second project is to achieve the production of thin film modules with the cell conversion coefficient of at least 10%, which will reduce cost and therefore allow for broad application of thin film photovoltaic technologies.
CIGS 薄膜太陽能電池，同樣係薄膜太陽能電池材料嘅 CIGS，被視為最有潛力與晶硅競爭嘅新材料。
ATTV 好高興能夠同 NAMI 合作，攜手開發 CIGS 薄膜太陽能電池技術。我哋綜合咗同埋運用各行業嘅生產優勢，成功開發出一套嶄新嘅大型研究設備。
經過雙方嘅共同努力，已達到階段性嘅成果。目前正專注於解決喺量產上所遇到嘅問題，以開發出完整嘅量產工藝同流程。
納米技術亦可以應用喺唔同嘅領域，例如建築材料同埋醫療物料。
保溫複合外牆板。保溫複合外牆板由泡沫混凝土同纖維水泥保護層所組成，將化學泡沫加上混凝土技術，可減低導熱係數至傳統混凝土嘅1/4，從而提高隔熱性能。呢個產品 可應用起外牆建築，重量比傳統混凝土輕，但卻具備一般混凝土嘅承托力，加上保護層，可提高其抗滲透能力。總括嚟講，呢個保溫複合外牆板利用咗優良嘅隔熱性能，可減低室內空調或暖風機嘅耗電量，同時保持舒適嘅室溫，達至減碳節能嘅效果。納米藥貼，千百年以嚟，中醫藥界一直沿用鐵打藥對外科創傷進行治療。傳統鐵打中藥配方經過科學驗證，證實具有消炎、血管修復同促進骨質細胞生長等療效。最近，香港中文大學、香港科技大學與納米及先進材料研發院有限公司共同合作，運用先進納米工程技術，初步研發出一種高效透皮中藥劑型納米藥貼。納米藥貼能夠優化中藥有效成分喺水中嘅溶解度，加強有效成分喺人體嘅吸收，並降低用藥成本。經進行生物活性試驗後，結果證實納米藥貼比傳統中藥藥膏更能增加有效成分嘅透皮吸收同效用，加強創傷組織愈合。我哋期望納米藥貼進入工業研發生產後，更具有經濟效益同埋進一步嘅研究價值。
LAMI嘅使命係同香港公司合作，開發納米及先進材料嘅產品，然後將呢啲產品推出市場。我哋有信心響不久嘅將來會研發出更多成功嘅產品。
好，唔該晒。咁我
Thank you. You've all watched the video. I believe you've all got questions, a lot of questions. Miss Wong, can we do it like this? Can we proceed directly to questions and answers? You can supplement when answering members' questions. First of all, Mr. Charles Mock. Thank you, Madam Chairman. In the video, we can see a lot of achievements. In fact, we have visited a number of centers. We're still making arrangements to visit further centers. I think in future you can just give us a link and we can watch the video ourselves. What about SWOT analysis? In future, you can give us something like a SWOT analysis. Don't just tell us the successful cases. We would like to know your problems, challenges, etc. as well. If you can do so, then in future when we read your report, we'll be able to assist you more. The industries are your partners. We did discuss with them. We visited their centers and talked to their researchers. After all, most of the projects are collaborative projects between the government and the centers. There are problems. The centers and the industries feel that they have to inject money into projects, they have to do research, they have to collaborate with you. Unlike in the UK, you don't commercialize research products. Many researchers and other personnel would, please don't mind, they say that in the vetting process, the ITC has not mastered the skills and technology sufficiently, and they rely on outsiders to vet their projects. More seriously, for certain projects, they have to guarantee a return. I heard that for some projects, a return rate of 20% had to be guaranteed. They told me it's very difficult to do research for projects costing several $1 million or several tens of millions of dollars. Success cannot be guaranteed. Of course, we can't ask you for immediate solutions. We should not argue whether or not such problems do exist. What I want to do is to examine R&D policies. I'm interested to know the commercialization of R&D results. I'm not asking for answers today as to how to solve all these problems. For the trades and industries, for the researchers, for the centers, for the government, you have to conduct a review on how to do better. Some of them even told me that there's a certain degree of bureaucracy in this because the government has contribution to projects, and there are also social enterprises as well as universities participating in R&D projects. So when can we have a comprehensive review on R&D policies? Commissioner, I think Ms. Mock is most interested in the commercialization of R&D results. That is, how to turn R&D results into economic achievements. And how can you quantify your success and achievements? Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the questions, which are very useful. We work very hard on commercialization of R&D products. Members would have noted that year after year, more and more R&D results have been commercialized. Yes, some R&D efforts have remained academic. We've noted that. We'll take note of the scope and strength of our R&D efforts. Mr. Mock mentioned interim processes. Now we do cover the experimental stage. We'll comprehensively examine how we can do better. In the last part of the paper, we say that the ITF has been in place for a decade. With no new injection of funds, we won't be able to continue. I hope that members will support our funding application put forth to the FG. Then we'll review the scope and strength of our efforts. Chairman, let me add a few more words. This review is very important. If you want to come back to the Finance Committee, then you have to be prepared for questions on the merits and demerits of your efforts. You have to face criticisms. If the ITF cannot continue, it will be very serious. So please get ready as soon as possible. Otherwise, when you go to the Finance Committee, if you're still not ready, the ITF will be affected. Well, the review will be very complicated because we're talking about 15 years. Before we go to the FC, in terms of subvention for the industries, in terms of the scope of subvention, we'll come to this panel first to have some discussions. Because the scope of the review will be very broad, we can't swallow it in one go. Commissioner, when will you exhaust your fund? That is at the end of the paper. About 50 years ago, the LegCo allocated $5 billion to us. We spent about $7 billion. Why we've overspent? Previously, the exchange fund invested for us. Now, we have around $1.3 billion that have not been earmarked for any project. According to our calculation, our budget will be very tight in a year's time. So, early next year or in the middle of next year, we'll consult this panel on major reforms, such that we can safely and comfortably seek new funds from the FC. I won't come very late. So please discuss with us as early as possible. Yes, we'll discuss with you. Next, Mr. Wong King Kwong. Thank you, Chairman. I'm very pleased to see so many representatives here. I can see that the R&D centers are gradually showing their achievements, and R&D results have been applied. We hope that you scale new heights in future and attain even more. In the video just now, I can see that certain R&D results can be applied to LegCo as well. I think each LegCo member should be given a vest so that we can trace each and every member wherever they go, wherever they are. I hope that when the Commissioner and her colleagues come to the LegCo, apart from reporting their success, they should also tell us their difficulties. I believe that you feel that LegCo members attach importance to your problems, and we're willing to solve your problems, and will join hands in working hard towards the success of Hong Kong.
對中小企呢？
But it seems that we may not have done enough for SMEs via the R&D centers, or the SMEs may not yet be able to benefit fully from the fruit of R&D centers' efforts. And so, is it possible for you to divide up the so-called pie in a bigger number of smaller parts so that even SMEs can benefit? And also the R&D efforts should not be aimed too big, because you also need to help SMEs. Now, talking about the difficulties that we face, actually one of the difficulties in using taxpayers' money for this particular area is the complexity of procedures that we have to go through, because everybody is very mindful of the importance of value for money when it comes to use of taxpayers' money. And so, because everybody pays so much attention to that, and so there are many more clearances for us to negotiate through before we can get the funding. And also the industry and commerce sector has been telling us that we need to be less conservative and bolder when it comes to use of resources for R&D. And so we have to strike a balance here. Now, the Chief Executive has mentioned that the percentage of Hong Kong's GDP accounted for by R&D efforts should be raised, and also Hong Kong should sharpen its R&D capabilities. So we are trying to make the procedures of clearance more user-friendly. And indeed, SMEs are very important for Hong Kong. I agree with Mr. Wong. And at present, we've got a matching fund of 6 million to 6 million in the form of a SME funds. And this is repayable. And so when they receive injection from a third party of funding, then they have to start paying back the government. And SMEs have been saying that the government has to be more generous because it is supposed to be a subsidy and support scheme. We have searched our conscience and we can say that when it comes to helping SMEs, it is not being dealt with sufficiently. And indeed, we are trying to look for ways in order to redouble our efforts to step up our efforts to help the SMEs. And when there are progress, we're going to report to you. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, paragraph 9 of the paper carries a comparison on the participation rate this year compared to last year. Mr. Sin, please speak into the mic. Page 9 of the paper talks about participation rate, and it was reported that there has been an increase in 2013 now for APEX and also for logistics. Participation rate has increased, and for NAMI, once again, it is at the top of the chart when it comes to participation rate, 39%. And I think R&D is important to commerce and industry only if there is application of technological results from R&D. And so I think R&D fruits can act as a very good source of reference and reference value. I recall that in 1998, when Mr. Tin Chang Lam was being commissioned by Mr. C.H. Tong to do R&D, he proposed the $5 billion fund, and that was over a decade ago. And I think for R&D, we have to adopt a trial and error attitude. After several generations of officials, and since several sectors of our economy have been selected as the target areas for enhanced R&D efforts, I think it's now time for us to ponder whether the selection should be made by the government or instead should be made by the commerce and industry sector. And I think it is now time for us to review that question again. Of course, it is very easy to say that the more the number of centers, the better. But that said, for the centers that have scored very low participation rate, we need to know whether it is beyond their capability to attract participation from the industry and commerce sector. So do we need to review whether any R&D centers are scoring too low a participation rate, and so they should be taken under scrutiny so that maybe we can look for room for a sixth center to set up, because that could be a sixth area that really deserves subsidized R&D efforts. So I'm trying to ask whether there can be an exit channel for R&D centers that are underperforming. Of course, if more sectors of the economy can be covered by the R&D subsidy scheme, it would be great. But I would like to urge the government to first of all carry out a review to weed out any underperformers among R&D centers, and then come to Finance Committee for more funding. I think this has to be done on a sustainable and continuous basis, and we need long-term commitment on this. And this is not something that is only being done at one go. We want younger generation to participate in R&D efforts. Hong Kong students and Hong Kong young people all want to score quick money. I myself used to study floral or fundamental science that specialize in floral studies. And there are many university graduate students that are from mainland, and not many Hong Kong students would like to go to graduate school because they want to score quick money. And so my two questions are, first of all, what are the new areas that might be included in future in the R&D subsidized scheme? And secondly, whether you're going to review the performance of R&D centers that are underperforming, and whether there might be a possibility of weeding them out to create room for newcomers. Mrs. Sin, indeed, you are right on in saying that on one hand, you have to look at the underperformers to see whether they should allowed to be continue to receive subsidy. And that is why in 2011 we have done a 5-year review on the R&D centers. And back then the statistics show that the LSCM and the Hong Kong RITA could not reach the 15% participation rate. And that is why the last time when we approached FC for funding, while all the other R&D centers managed to secure FC funding all the way up to 2017. But for the two underperformers, Hong Kong RITA and LSCM, the funding could only last them through 2015. And back then, we already indicated that the two underperformers would be given 2 years grace period, and their performance would be reviewed again. But very fortunately, with the able leadership of their CEO, the two underperformers now have already reached the target. And also for cooperation with government and also for commercialization, these two underperformers have scored great success. SCM has cooperated with Custom and Excise Department and on the product of their R&D findings. And also for Hong Kong RITA, the commercialization has increased by 12% over the past 2 years, and so we are happy with that performance. Now, for the two underperformers, because their funding is only good for 2015 March, and so for these two underperformers, we're going to submit another paper to ask for funding so that their financial resources can last them through 2017, so that they are on par with the other R&D centers. Of course, we are going to give you all the figures that you need and then get your blessings before we approach Finance Committee. Mr. Chung Kok Ban, I have to declare that I used to sit on the board of Hong Kong RITA, but not anymore, for a long time. On many occasions, we told the government that it had not put sufficient resources into R&D. And so, Director, you can rest assured that if you indeed approach us for funding, we are going to be very, very supportive. And actually, we feel that there should be more than 5 R&D centers. And research and development takes a lot of lead time. So there may be 1 or 2 R&D centers that have underperformed. But now, given sufficient time, I think the 2 underperformers have reached a target. And also, from the short video presentation, we can see that the 5 R&D centers managed to come up with products that are mature enough for application in the market. And also, only Hong Kong RITA and also S3 have managed to secure commercial proceeds and commercial revenue. But what about the other 3 R&D centers, especially NAMI? NAMI has done very well. How come it's got no commercial revenue? Now, for S3, it's been around for a very long time, and also it is of a much larger scale than the other 2 R&D centers, and so it's no wonder that S3 has got commercial revenue. And actually, for the other R&D centers, they've also achieved initial results in terms of commercial revenue. Now, if the convening is agreeable, I'm going to ask APAS, NAMI, and LSCM CEOs to give you a report concerning commercial revenue that they are generating. I think we still have 3 minutes for that.
好啊，但係你呢間房係點有人？可以嘅嚇，我哋可以適當延長嗰個。
We can extend the meeting for as long as 15 minutes at most. Yeah, I would like to hear that detailed presentation. Okay, each CEO 3 minutes. I'm from LSCM. My name is Yong Gong Yang. If you look at NXT, a lot of our work actually has begun only last year. If you look at 2013 and if you compare that with 2012, you would know that in terms of amount that we expended, we have done 4 times more of work. And sponsorship from the industry and commerce sector actually has increased by 4 times. And our participation rate is 18%. And a lot of our projects and a lot of our items have just begun. And so the result that you see at this point in time actually has not been monetized yet. For instance, we've done e-log for the Customs Excise Department. And it is not for generating proceeds for us. It is to facilitate the entire logistics industry because it can smooth over the flow of freight and the flow of cargo. And also we are doing a study on behalf of Customs Excise Department for one key in order to cover multiple boundary points. And if we can achieve success in this regard, it is going to go a long way to help our logistics industry because it will simplify procedures. And also for the retail industry, we are doing a research in order to come up with ways to use RDFI technology to deal with counterfeit and fake goods. And we are talking to the retail industry to see how such a technology can be commercialized so that players in the commerce and industry sector can really verify whether the products that they're selling are indeed genuine products.
RFID.
As for RFID, electronic labeling, proceeds have been low. We designed the labels for the SMEs. At the beginning, we charged a very low fee, and later we charged them more for intellectual property. We would like to benefit the SMEs as well as the whole industry. In fact, we still have time. You can report for 3 minutes. Just now, some members said that they would like to know your difficulties. In what way would you like us to help you? Here we have a number of members from the commerce and industry sectors. Just now, members asked about commercialization of R&D products. I'm Joseph Poon from Automotive Parts and Accessory Systems R&D Center. At the beginning, we invested a lot in R&D. Commercialization started from our 3rd year. For APAS, in recent years, 7 R&D products had been commercialized. But the return rate had not been too high because we very much take care of the interest of SMEs. So prices quoted by us are affordable in the market. Take, for example, for the long vehicles, we researched into the monitoring mirror for the back of vehicles. And LED lights had also been our product. We also research into new materials. A new technology is to harden the surface of metal so as to enhance induction. That benefit a number of trades and industries. Our achievements may not be able to be quantified. For APAS, there's a fundamental project as well as partnership projects. Trades and industries did invest into our R&D processes, and the resultant products can be used by the respective trades and industries. Some products have been used in the market. You may not be able to see any return from our statement of accounts. The chairman asked us what problems we have. Insofar as R&D is concerned, there are uncertainties. So R&D centers have to look at their basic abilities. So for new technology, through seed money, R&D centers have been able to carry out R&D projects, and the market will be confident in letting R&D centers do experiment for themselves. I'm the CEO of NAMI. Incoming. Yes, we should work harder on commercialization. For NAMI, we issued 5 licenses at a cost of $300,000. We would like to target more, but $300,000 is only licensing fee. All right, the technology is licensed out. However, last year, we were still not able to make a profit because after the issuance of license, you need to manufacture the products, and the products have to be sold before we can have proceeds. I hope that in the next 2 to 3 years, we'll continue to have royalty income. And as we license more and more products, I believe the prospect is good. Our plan is that in 2 to 3 years' time, the commercialization income will come in. I'm confident that the income will increase. That's point number 1. And then, as members pointed out just now, NAMI receives the most support from the industries. Why is it that the royalty income was still so low? Now, that's still an issue for us. What's the reason? The industries very much want NAMI to help them. Almost 39% of our projects are funded by the industries. That's a piece of good news. The bad news is that the IT belongs to the company concerned, and we cannot license the IT. So we are examining how we can strike a balance between the two. The IT right belongs to the company. We try to compare ourselves with other jurisdictions like Germany. To the industries, we've been very generous by giving them the IT right. As a result, we lose our own copyright income. So we would like to hold the intellectual property ourselves so that we can license enterprises, including SMEs, to manufacture the products concerned. Mr. Wong Ting Kwong, Chairman, I think we should feel comfortable about this. To me, income is not the only yardstick to measure success. R&D do carry risks. You may not succeed, so achievements may not be reflected in the accounts. Sometimes the proceeds are invisible. I understand that very well, so you can set your mind at ease. I'm from Hong Kong, Rita. I'm Edwin Ke. Very often we don't see financial results. Take, for example, together with the Thoma Group of Hospitals, we carried out a tracking system on their elderly centers. There's a certain degree of difficulty here. And last year, we manufactured the costumes of Lai-wan in the Olympics. So we can carry out R&D at an international standard, but proceeds may not be visible readily. Just now in the video, you saw two major projects. We obtained 2 Golden Awards in Geneva, and just last week we had a hand-on sensor and a color sensor. In Shanghai, the feedback was very good for those 2 products. The industries would like to place orders with us immediately, and ATC in the United States is now starting a new test. In about 3 years' time, they'll be able to set standards. So, to objectively assess the feelings of the hands, you can use this sensor. And we have 20 to 30 new items, new projects in the pipeline. These products will not just bring in economic proceeds, but also applicability to society at large. The trades and industries that contacted us, and we proactively contact them as well. We asked in what way we can help them. We have received very useful themes, and we are gradually working on them. For example, sustainability brought in good profits. And just this week, we're promoting the use of food wastes. We'll use no water dyeing for leather products. Those are environmentally friendly measures and methods. I'm the CEO of Hong Kong Astri, Nim Kwan Chong. We have a longer history. We have a history of 12 years, so we may be able to give you more data. In order to acquire support from the industries, in 2012, we broke the record and received $68 million, 25.3%, which was very encouraging. We've never received so much support from the industries. And we successfully formed 3 independent companies, high-tech companies in Hong Kong. one on cameras and mobile phones, and then a 4G company and another circuit manufacturing company. In 2012, these new companies and authorized companies have created 288 posts, high-paid posts in my eyes, with an annual growth of 42%. So we'd like to continue to divest such companies. As for royalty, we applied for 786 patents, 380 granted. These patents form one of the biggest patent pools in Hong Kong. I have to echo Mr. Gregory So's remark that Hong Kong should become a trading city of a knowledge-based economy. We license manufacturers, many of them SMEs, and global manufacturers have come to Hong Kong to purchase our patents. We've been cautious, however. If overseas companies want to purchase our patents to sue other parties, we won't sell our patents to them. But for patents to be used for manufacturing, we'll be willing to sell. Thank you. I'd like to thank the representatives of the 5 R&D centers. We have 2 more minutes. Mr. LAU Wai-hing will be asking for the first time. Next time, would you please come in earlier? Sorry, Chairman. I had other activities, so I was late. I won't ask questions. I'd like to declare that I am a board member of the Hong Kong Army. Oh, you're not asking questions. You just want to make a declaration. Charles Mock, very quick. I'd like to respond to the speakers just now. They said that a lot of achievements cannot be reflected by figures. I understand. For R&D, we should not focus too much on short-term proceeds. So in your reports, I hope that you can give us more analysis about employment, social values such as assisting the elderly and so forth. You should set out those achievements as well. If just a few of us can approve your budget, it would be easier. But other LegCo members may have their own thoughts. We have to inform other members as well as educate society that R&D is important. Perhaps you should bring in economists to look into the long term. Don't just do calculation for the short term. You should plow back resources to society, and you can see how councillors can help you. We'll see in what way we can assist you. Social value is important.
We agree with Mr. Wong and Mr. Mock. We are not in this to make a profit. We look for commercial sponsorship not because we want a profit, but because it will reflect whether or not the R&D centers deserve confidence from the community. Are all 5 R&D centers located at the same spot? Mr. Wong and his center is at Cyberport. And Mr. Poon is affiliated with PC, and that's why it's at Kowloon Tong. And Kaming is at Science Park and also Hong Kong UST. Mainly, we are at Science Park. Our headquarters will be moved to Science Park. And Mr. Kwok, because he's working very closely with PolyU, he's at PolyU. And S3 is at Science Park. I think we all want to know more about the difficulties and the challenges and achievements of our R&D centers, and I'm sure the Secretariat would be very happy to put together visits to benefit us to the R&D centers. Right, we end at this point. Thank you very much.
支持。